All right, this is part two of our look at imperialism and colonization. Today, our section is looking at old world powers in Europe and the interaction between the two before the Industrial Revolution or during the early stages of it. So, we're going to start with a quick video. All right. So the question for us is, how did that happen? How did a few states, relatively small in size, come to dominate, geographically speaking, the entire world, or nearly so? So how did that happen? I think the first place to begin is looking at what's sometimes called the first wave of imperialism, referred to within the European literature as Europe's Age of Discovery, from the 1400s to the early 1700s. This is principally a so-called New World colonization through the Americas and the Caribbean. It does not necessarily connect to the Old World, or the so-called Old World. By the Old World, we mean everything to the east of the Atlantic. So Asia, Africa would be considered the Old World. Europe would be considered the Old World. And so prior to the late 1700s, Europe had very little impact on the Old World. And if we look at global history, you will see that Europe, broadly speaking, did not have a lot to offer the rest of the world in terms of a destination worth imperializing and controlling. So if we look at this time period, 16th to 18th century, so 1500s to 1700s, there are these four significant empires in the world: the Russian Empire, the Ottomans, the Safavids, the Mughals, and the Manchu Qing Empire. And all of these empires were very, very strong. The Mughal Empire had roughly 23% of the global GDP. The Qing dynasty, roughly similar. Whereas comparably, England had around, I think, 1%, 1.5%, 2%, somewhere in that range of global GDP. So these are powerful empires. And although the slave trade dramatically impacted populations within the interior of Africa, Africans ruled Africans. And as we can see here, by looking at this map in the mid-late 1800s, colonial states or forts or trading outposts were coastal. The interior was not an area of control. And so what we have is Europeans as traders, but not settlers. That is to say, they do business, but they don't control or live there. And things began to change by the mid-1800s. I'll give you just one example, and that comes back to this map here. and it relates to tea. In 1799, the British are in the 1700s. The British start drinking a lot of tea. The only place in the world that tea is grown at that time is China, and the British are getting their tea directly from China. Now, the only way they can get the tea is to give the Chinese their coffers of gold and silver, because the Chinese don't want anything the British have to offer. Woolens, not very good woolens at that. Some mechanical clocks, but I mean, how many mechanical clocks can you want? And there's this exchange that happens in 1799 where the British mission arrives at the Qing court, and the Qing emperor basically says, yeah, you don't have anything we want. Anything you guys are offering, we make better. So if you want to give us gold, great. Otherwise, go away. There are these stories of the British trade mission who's trying to come to China to take tea back to Britain. They are held waiting for 2 years to meet the emperor, just for a meeting. The same thing with the Moguls. The Moguls of the 1600s are far more impressive than in terms of wealth than what you have in Western Europe. So let's wrap there for this. As a reminder, Europeans are global traders, but not settlers. And again, that European colonialism really is a New World phenomenon, not an Old World phenomenon, until the around 1800 and beyond. Okay, let's wrap, and we'll come back next session looking at the Industrial Revolution and the effect that the Industrial Revolution had on European desires.